There are certain people who move through the world with an unusual depth. They feel more than others. They question more than others. And often they suffer more than others, without fully understanding why. These are not the loudest people in the room. They are the ones who sense meaning beneath events, who feel called towards something they cannot yet name. Life does not treat them gently, but it treats them deliberately. Before the right person enters their life, the universe does not reward these rare souls with comfort. It prepares them, and preparation is rarely pleasant. What follows are not punishments, but initiations, 5 quiet, often painful transformations that shape a soul into someone capable of recognizing, holding, and honoring the connection meant for them. There comes a moment in the life of certain individuals when the world they once inhabited begins to feel strangely foreign. Nothing dramatic may have changed on the surface. Faces are the same, routines intact, conversations familiar, yet something subtle and unsettling takes hold within. The laughter no longer reaches as deeply. The roles once played with ease begin to feel heavy, almost dishonest. These individuals often try to reason their way out of the discomfort. They tell themselves they are overthinking, that gratitude should silence the unease. But the feeling persists because it is not a passing mood. It is an inner signal. For a long time, many rare souls learn how to belong by adapting rather than revealing. They sense early that their inner world is more complex, more sensitive, more searching than what their environment easily accommodates. So they listen carefully, adjust their tone, suppress certain questions, soften their intensity. They become skilled at reading rooms, at being what is needed, at earning acceptance through quiet self-erasure. From the outside, they appear integrated. From the inside, something essential is slowly being starved. This is when the universe intervenes, not with cruelty but with precision. The illusion of belonging begins to crack. Relationships that once felt secure lose their resonance. Friendships grow distant without a clear reason. Groups that once provided identity now feel hollow, as though the soul can no longer draw nourishment from them. Often, this phase is interpreted as rejection, and it wounds deeply. The rare soul asks, "What did I do wrong?" Yet the question itself arises from the old pattern, the belief that belonging must be earned by performance. What is actually dissolving is not connection, but false alignment. Belonging that requires the constant suppression of one's inner truth is not belonging at all. It is a form of exile disguised as safety. Psychological research supports this. Prolonged inauthenticity correlates strongly with anxiety, depression, and a fragmented sense of self. The psyche cannot remain divided without consequence. So the universe withdraws the comfort of illusion in order to protect the integrity of the self. This withdrawal often feels like loneliness, but it is a specific kind of loneliness, the loneliness of no longer being able to lie to oneself. The rare soul may find themselves alone in rooms where they were once surrounded, feeling unseen in conversations that once felt familiar. Yet within this isolation, something important begins to emerge. Without the pressure to conform, the soul starts to listen inwardly. Questions once avoided now surface. What do I actually value? What do I feel when no one is watching? Who am I when I am not trying to be chosen? Many resist this stage by rushing to recreate belonging elsewhere, repeating the same patterns in new environments. But the discomfort follows because it is not about location or people. It is about the relationship with the self. The universe is asking for a different kind of loyalty, one that does not abandon inner truth for external acceptance. As this process continues, a subtle strengthening occurs. The rare soul begins to tolerate standing alone without interpreting it as failure. They discover that solitude, while painful at first, is not empty. It becomes a space of recalibration, where the nervous system settles and the inner voice grows clearer. Slowly, the fear of not fitting in is replaced by a deeper fear, losing oneself again. This is the transformation the universe requires before true connection can enter. Because the right person does not arrive to rescue someone from loneliness, they arrive to meet someone who no longer betrays themselves for belonging. When the illusion finally breaks, what remains is not isolation, but alignment. And from that alignment, a new kind of belonging becomes possible, one that does not demand disappearance, only presence. There comes a stage when the noise of the world no longer distracts the rare soul. The familiar escapes lose their power. Work, entertainment, even relationships no longer soften the ache that lingers beneath the surface. Life becomes quieter, not peacefully so, but insistently. Silence follows them home, sits beside them at night, and waits. This is the moment many fear, because silence removes all hiding places. For a long time, the rare soul has been oriented outward. They have measured themselves through reflection, how others respond, what roles they fulfill, what love or approval they receive. But now, the mirrors disappear. External validation weakens, and the soul is turned inward, not by choice, but by necessity. The universe closes the exits gently but firmly, until there is nowhere left to go except inside. At first, this confrontation feels overwhelming. Thoughts long buried rise without invitation. Old memories surface with emotional force, not as distant recollections, but as living experiences. Patterns repeat themselves internally: the fear of abandonment, the need to prove worth, the impulse to overgive or withdraw. Or the rare soul may wonder why wounds they thought were healed now feel freshly exposed. Yet this is not regression, it is revelation. What was once managed through distraction can no longer be avoided. The unconscious, patient and precise, now demands acknowledgement. Modern psychology confirms what inner experience reveals. Unresolved emotional material does not disappear with time. It waits for safety or stillness to emerge. When the world becomes quiet enough, the psyche finally speaks. This phase is often mistaken for failure. The rare soul may believe they are falling behind, while others seem to move forward effortlessly. Yet what appears as stagnation is actually deep inner movement. The universe is not interested in speed at this stage, it is interested in depth. Because without self-confrontation, growth is merely cosmetic. During this time, the rare soul begins to notice uncomfortable truths. They see how certain relationships mirrored unresolved childhood dynamics. They recognize how longing was mistaken for love, how intensity was confused with intimacy. They begin to understand that many choices were not conscious decisions, but emotional repetitions, attempts to repair old wounds through familiar outcomes. This realization can be painful. There is grief in seeing how much energy was spent trying to earn what should have been freely given. There is shame in recognizing patterns that no longer align with who one is becoming. But alongside this pain comes some easing, quietly empowering awareness, and awareness, once gained, cannot be undone. As self-confrontation deepens, responsibility shifts inward. The rare soul stops asking why life keeps happening to them and begins asking what within them is being invited to change. This is not self-blame, it is self-ownership. Research on emotional regulation shows that individuals who develop reflective self-awareness are far more capable of forming healthy, secure bonds. They are no longer driven by unconscious fear, but guided by conscious choice. The universe insists on this inner reckoning because the right person cannot enter a life governed by unresolved inner conflict. Without confrontation, love becomes a projection. Someone else is asked to carry what the soul has not yet faced. That burden eventually destroys connection. Through this inward journey, the rare soul learns to sit with discomfort without fleeing, to observe emotions without being consumed by them. They develop a relationship with themselves that is honest, compassionate, and grounded. The inner world, once chaotic, begins to organize itself around truth rather than avoidance. By the time this phase completes, something essential has changed. The rare soul no longer needs another person to distract them from themselves. They no longer seek completion through external rescue. They have met themselves fully and survived the meeting, and because of that, when connection arrives, it is no longer used as an escape, but experienced as a meeting of two conscious inner worlds. There is a particular kind of loss reserved for rare souls, not the kind that merely ends something, but the kind that changes the way the heart understands reality. It arrives unexpectedly, often after deep investment, when meaning has already been assigned and the future quietly imagined. A relationship dissolves that felt inevitable. A connection fades that seemed to recognize something essential. Words once spoken with certainty lose their grounding. What remains is not just absence, but disorientation. At first, the mind searches for explanations. The rare soul replays conversations, revisits moments, looks for the precise point where things went wrong. This search is less about answers and more about restoring a sense of control. Because loss, especially unexplained loss, threatens a core belief that sincerity should be met with sincerity, that depth should protect against disappearance. When this belief collapses, pain follows swiftly. Yet the universe does not allow rare souls to remain in bitterness for long, even when bitterness feels justified. If resentment takes root, it hardens perception and narrows the heart. So something subtler begins to occur. Grief deepens, but it also clarifies. Beneath the anger, a quieter truth emerges, that love, even when it ends, was still real. That meaning does not vanish simply because form does. This realization does not arrive gently. It is learned through nights of emotional wait, through the strange coexistence of longing and clarity. The rare soul begins to see that not all losses are failures. Some are revelations. They expose not only what was lost, but what was unconsciously sought. Often the pain is less about the person who left and more about the hope that had been placed upon them. The hope that this time the wound would finally close. Psychological research on grief shows that individuals who process loss without suppression develop greater emotional complexity and resilience. They become capable of holding contradictory truths at once, that something was beautiful and that it was not meant to last. This capacity is rare, and it changes how the soul relates to love itself. As the rare soul moves through this terrain, something unexpected happens. The desire to assign blame weakens, not because the pain was imaginary, but because blame no longer serves growth. They begin to recognize that many connections end not due to malice, but due to mismatch in readiness, capacity, or self-awareness. This understanding does not excuse harm, but it prevents the heart from calcifying around it. Loss, when fully felt, becomes a teacher of proportion. The rare soul learns that intensity is not a measure of truth, and that longing does not guarantee alignment. They start to differentiate between being deeply moved and being deeply met. This distinction is painful to acquire, but once learned, it cannot be forgotten. What is most remarkable is that the rare soul does not lose their capacity to love through this process. In fact, it often expands. Having endured grief without turning inwardly violent or emotionally closed, they develop a steadier compassion for themselves and for others. They no longer demand permanence as proof of value. They understand that connection can be meaningful even when it is temporary. This stage is where many people harden, but rare souls soften without becoming fragile. They grieve fully, yet refuse to let grief define their future. They learn to carry memory without worshipping it, and pain without building identity around it. This balance is delicate, and it takes time, but it reshapes the inner world in profound ways. The universe allows this loss because it prepares the rare soul for a different kind of love, one not rooted in fear of disappearance. When bitterness is avoided, the heart remains open but wiser. When grief is integrated rather than resisted, the soul becomes spacious enough to hold love without clinging. By the end of this passage, the rare soul understands something essential. Love is not proven by endurance alone, but by the truth it awakens while it exists. And having learned this, they are no longer shattered by endings. They are refined by them, carrying forward a heart capable of devotion without illusion and tenderness without fear. There comes a moment when the rare soul no longer feels compelled to ask for permission to exist as they are. It is not a ood transformation. Nothing external announces it. Yet internally, a quiet authority begins to take shape. The endless scanning of others for cues, approval, reassurance, confirmation gradually fades. In its place emerges a steadier reference point, one that does not fluctuate with praise or withdrawal. For much of their life, the rare soul has been highly attuned to the emotional climate around them. This sensitivity once served as a survival strategy. It allowed them to adapt, to maintain connection, to anticipate needs. But over time, this outward orientation came at a cost. Decisions were made not from inner truth, but from the fear of loss. Boundaries were negotiated away in exchange for closeness. Desire was filtered through what would be accepted rather than what was authentic. The universe begins to dismantle this pattern by creating moments of internal dissonance. The rare soul notices that saying yes when they mean no produces an immediate inner tension. Ignoring intuition now feels physically uncomfortable. The body itself becomes a messenger, signaling misalignment through fatigue, anxiety, or emotional withdrawal. What was once tolerable now feels unbearable, not because the soul has become weaker, but because it has become more honest. Gradually, the rare soul learns to pause before reacting. Instead of asking how a choice will be received, they ask how it will be lived with. This shift is subtle, yet transformative. Psychological research on self-regulation shows that individuals who develop a strong internal locus of control experience greater emotional stability and relational satisfaction. They are no longer governed by external reinforcement, but guided by inner coherence. As this internal authority strengthens, old attractions lose their pull. Relationships marked by inconsistency, emotional volatility, or unspoken power dynamics begin to feel exhausting rather than exciting. What once felt like chemistry now registers as imbalance. The rare soul does not become indifferent, they become discerning. Desire aligns with values and attachment gives way to intention. This stage can feel isolating at first. When one stops bending, certain connections naturally fall away. The rare soul may be perceived as distant or changed. In truth, they are simply no longer available for self-abandonment. Boundaries, once feared as barriers to love, are now understood as conditions for it. They protect the inner world rather than conceal it. What emerges through this process is trust, directed inward. The rare soul begins to rely on their own perception. They honor discomfort as information rather than weakness. They allow intuition to inform choices without needing immediate validation. This does not make them rigid or closed, but anchored. They can listen deeply without losing themselves in what they hear. The universe requires this alignment because the right person cannot meet someone who has not yet claimed their own inner ground. With internal authority, love becomes negotiation rather than meeting. One person leads, the other adapts. True connection demands symmetry, not sacrifice disguised as devotion. By the time this phase settles, the rare soul no longer seeks completion through another. They experience themselves as whole yet open. They are capable of choosing rather than being chosen, of staying without clinging, of leaving without guilt. Their presence becomes calmer, their expectations clearer, their emotional landscape more stable. This is not the loss of tenderness, but its maturation. Love, guided by inner authority, no longer needs to prove itself through endurance or intensity. It simply needs to be true. And it is from this grounded place that the rare soul becomes capable of recognizing a connection that does not demand surrender of self, but invites its fullest expression. There is a reason the right person so often arrives later than expected, after hope has been tempered and longing has quieted. Timing for the rare soul is not governed by desire, but by readiness of perception. The universe does not respond to urgency, it responds to alignment. And alignment is something that cannot be rushed, only realized. Earlier in life, recognition is easily confused with intensity. The rare soul, sensitive and perceptive, feels deeply and quickly. They sense possibility in a glance, meaning in coincidence, destiny in emotional charge. But this sensitivity, before it is refined, interprets obstination as truth. What feels overwhelming is mistaken for what feels right. Neuroscience supports this confusion. Heightened emotional arousal activates the same neural pathways as attachment, making instability feel compelling and familiarity feel dull. The universe waits for this misunderstanding to dissolve. So time stretches, encounters come and go, almost right connections appear, meaningful, even transformative, but incomplete. Each one teaches something subtle, how safety feels different from excitement, how consistency can feel unfamiliar, how calm can initially be mistaken for absence of feeling. The rare soul may grow discouraged, wondering why love seems delayed, why recognition never quite settles. What they do not yet see is that their perception is still being refined. Gradually, the inner noise quiets, the need to assign meaning prematurely fades. The rare soul becomes less invested in fantasy and more attuned to reality as it unfolds. They no longer search for signs or symbols to confirm connection. They observe how they feel over time. Do they feel more themselves or less, more grounded or more anxious, more clear or more confused? These questions replace longing as guides. This shift is crucial. The universe cannot introduce the right person while the rare soul is still looking through the lens of projection. Projection does not see the other, it sees one's own unmet needs reflected back. Love entered at that stage would be consumed by expectation, not shared as presence. So timing remains delayed, not as punishment, but as protection. When recognition finally becomes possible, it arrives quietly. There is no dramatic collision, no sense of being overtaken. Instead, there is familiarity without history, ease without effort. The connection does not destabilize the inner world, it steadies it. Conversations unfold without performance. Silence feels inhabited rather than tense. The rare soul does not feel the urge to secure the bond, because nothing feels at risk. This is how the universe signals readiness, the absence of urgency. The rare soul no longer needs the connection to validate their worth or repair their past. They are not waiting to be chosen, rescued, or completed. They are simply present, and presence allows recognition to occur without distortion. Studies on secure attachment consistently show that healthy bonds are marked by predictability, mutual responsiveness, and emotional regulation, not intensity or volatility. But this kind of bond can only be recognized by someone who has learned to associate love with safety rather than struggle. The universe ensures that lesson is learned first. When the right person finally enters, the rare soul does not question the timing. There is an immediate sense of now rather than finally. The connection does not compete with their inner life, it complements it. There is no compulsion to abandon boundaries, no fear of disappearance. Both individuals stand on their own ground, and because of that, they can meet without imbalance. This is why the wait was necessary. Recognition required clarity, timing required maturity, and the universe, patient and exact, withheld what was meant until the rare soul could see it clearly, without illusion, without fear, and without mistaking longing for truth. If you are in the waiting, if life feels like a series of endings, if solitude feels heavier than it should, know this: you are not late, you are not broken, you are being prepared. The universe is not keeping love from you, it is shaping you into someone who can finally receive it, without losing yourself in the process. And when the right person comes, you will not ask if they are meant for you. You will know, because you will finally feel at home without having to disappear.